Hello and welcome back. This is week 7. We're going to be looking at the Libby Hill Afterparty course on Richmond. Let's get into the footage. So being that it's week 7, I am 2 weeks from the end of the Zwift Racing League and also 2 weeks from the end of my master's thesis being due to my review panel. Because of that, I might make some mistakes and stuff along the way. I'll apologize now because my brain is a little fried. But moving on from that, you'll see that we start near the pens. It's a couple hundred meters from the pens to the start-finish line. If you want to ride this course, it is an event-only course, so you'll have to select the Fan Flats route on your companion app or when you're selecting your route in the game. Start your ride on the Fan Flats and then turn around. It's about 2 kilometers, I believe, from the Fan Flats back to the start-finish line. And as we make that right-hand turn, we're back onto the Fan Flats. As the name suggests, really flat course. Stays around -1 to 1% most of the time. The front course is a pretty long, flat, straight drag, so it's pretty hard to actually get out of sight of a group on here. The only real features on the front half of the Fan Flats are these 2 roundabouts. If you're doing this in a race, you'll be doing 5 laps of the Fan Flats before making your way out towards Libby Hill Climb. On your way out, you'll hit the Broad Street Sprint, which I have a terrible time saying apparently, which will be your 6th sprint point. Because you have so many sprint points on this course, if you are in a race that does bonus points for the sprints, they can play a very significant factor in the final placings. And now we're making our way through the first sprint here. You can see about 220 meters from where it starts counting to when you cross the line. I get through the sprint in 19 seconds, which actually isn't terrible for me, but you can see the fastest sprint on the day was around 15 seconds, and in an actual race I would expect that to be much closer to 10 seconds, maybe less depending on the speed of the group, maybe a little more depending on whether or not they are going to be going for a sprint. If you're racing this course and there is no intermediate sprint points awarded for going through the segment, it's important to remember that the speed will still pick up as you go through the sprint segment, as people will go for it just for like general bragging rights. And that makes it a good place to make a counterattack, and it's really the only place as you do the laps on the Fan Flats for a good counterattack or breakaway option to happen, as those people that go for the big power output coming through the sprint to try to get the points or be the fastest through it will tire themselves out. You can make your counterattack through that and hopefully try to drop some people. Doing the Libby Hill Afterparty course, it is generally super flat, and so it's a good idea for teams or individuals to try to keep the speed up as much as possible on those flat sections to drop the climbers early. That's because the Libby Hill climb at the end, while short, is extremely steep, and those climbers or puncheurs will have a much easier time getting up it and will cause a lot of damage to the group if they're still there. As we make the second time through this, I'd suggest picking out a point to start your sprint at. You make that turnaround around 300 meters from the start of the sprint timer, just for a point of reference. If you're planning on going long for the sprint, then I would start sprinting on the other side before that turnaround. Otherwise, select whatever point along there that you think you'll be able to hold your highest speed through. And then we will continue on our way here. As I mentioned, the course super flat. You're going to want to keep the pace as fast as possible, which will lead into your bike selection. You're going to want something as aero as you can get. So the Trek Madon with the disc wheel and deep section front wheel. Otherwise, the Specialized Venge or any of the really aero bikes with the disc or deep section wheels are good options. Alternatively, I would suggest the Zwift concept bike, the Tron bike. And I would say that that's probably actually the best bike for this course because it competes aerodynamically with the most aero bikes in the game and is also light enough that it won't really hinder you when you go up the final climb. Now you can see there that we went straight through that intersection instead of turning left back up the Fan Flats, and that means that we're going to be making our way out to the Libby Hill climb. The left-hand side shows us that we're coming up to the Broad Street Sprint, which is about 280 meters in length. I'm going to slow down the footage again. You can look at the wonderful scenery and pick out where you want to start your sprint. If you are in a race that does intermediate sprint points, especially if you have a team, I would suggest having a lead-out rider for the first half of the sprint and then have your actual sprinter kick off around 150 to 100 meters to go. That's just because it's hard for most people to do a 300-meter sprint. And if you're going solo, then you can try to surf the wheels of the lead-out riders or get onto the wheel of someone who is trying to go the full 300 meters through. See, right after that sprint section, we get a right-hand turn, left-hand turn, and then real quickly into this descent. This descent is pretty fast. It's also pretty steep. So you can get into the super tuck as you come down here. Just watch out for that middle section where it levels off to about 0% for a couple meters. But for the most part, you can super tuck right down there, get in a really good recovery after all those short sprint efforts before getting onto this final section heading out to the Libby Hill climb. This section does stay really flat, but there is a short riser about halfway out that hits right here at 8%, and then it'll come back up to about 5% before leveling off again, and then going through a little descent. If you time an attack right, as you come over those two little short risers and then down that descent, you can get good separation and try to start another breakaway effort there. And it's really going to be the last place to try to get the breakaway effort going before hitting this turnaround, which brings you towards the final climb. That turnaround is also the point at which the teams are probably going to want to have dropped the pure climbers, as when you hit the climb that starts right there, you can see it's only about 640 meters in length. 2 minutes 12 seconds was the fastest time on the climb on the day. But the pure climbers will make a lot of headway on this climb, and since the end of the race is the top of this climb, they'll have a good chance at winning it over some of the heavier riders if they're still in the group. Pay attention to that turnaround right there. You hit 14 to 15% for a couple seconds. It's a really good place for the watt per kilo riders to make their attack is just before that, so you have a little bit of momentum coming into it. In the back half of this course, you can see that it's pretty steadily in the high orange to red numbers. So the watt per kilo riders are most likely going to want to attack on the back half of that climb. You can make a lot of headway there and get a good break going. And that's it. As you come over that banner, you are at the end of the course. That is where the race will be decided. I hope you found this helpful. Have a wonderful weekend. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop them below. If you don't want to miss any more of the route recons, give the channel a subscription. And if you found it useful, then give the video a like. Good luck in your races.